Good afternoon or good morning, boys and girls from all over the world, wherever you might be. Welcome to Djuma in the Sabi Sands, South Africa. We have a male leopard in the sunshine. He is sitting in the shade. He is very, very full. And first of all, my name is Steve Falconbridge, joined on camera by Sebastian Rombi. Welcome to this afternoon. It is 28 degrees Celsius, 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Here in South Africa, it's a marvelous afternoon. Please send through your questions. Ask your parents to send through questions at Nat Geo Kids at wildearth.tv. Let us know what's going on your side, what you'd like to see. Let's go back to the leopard. We are with a beautiful male leopard by the name of Hosanna, who had some breakfast and some dinner yesterday and is quite full now. So is sitting in the shade of a very small tree, trying to sort of make the day pass as quickly as possible, because it is a rather warm day, a rather windy day as well. And at least his head is up. When we arrived, he was lying very, very flat. We almost couldn't see him. And I don't know if you could hear that. That was a squirrel that just alarm called, and that got his attention. He took a look to the right, because what often happens is his dad comes along and steals his food. I'm not sure where his dad is today. We saw him this morning a little bit further away from here. But he's probably paying attention to the fact that his dad might arrive to come and say hello. He's very alert. Although he is full, he's still got his ears up. Oh, there's a big yawn. Hosanna is the name of this beautiful leopard, and that means the little chief. Means his dad is sort of in charge of the area, so he's the little chief, the son of the chief himself. Although he's not a chief, he's a duke. But it all gets quite complicated. He is a male leopard and a beautiful one, just over 2.5 years of age. He's a very successful leopard these days, doing very, very well in and around Djuma. He's been spending every single waking moment here for the last month and a bit. We've been very blessed to spend some wonderful moments with him. So we're hoping he's going to at least look towards the camera, because he is quite a superstar. He knows he's a beautiful leopard. Maybe he's just going to make you wait a little bit longer before he shows you his face. Okay, well, while we wait, we're going to go to my good friend Tristan, who's also out on safari in Djuma, and he would like to say good day.
Indeed, I would love to say good afternoon to all of you. As Steve mentioned, my name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Fergus this afternoon. And, well, we are taking a ride through Africa's wilderness and hope that you are all going to have a wonderful time joining us as we do it. Now, what I'm doing is I'm driving down in a riverbed area because I'm looking for Hosanna's dad, Tingana. So he's our big, dominant male leopard, still much bigger than what Hosanna is. And we had him this morning moving in this direction. So I'm just coming to see if I can find any sign of him. It's also a little riverbed that takes us down to a waterhole, which is a great place to find elephants. And so we're going to try and have a look out for them as well. And hopefully we'll have some luck this afternoon with both the elephants and Hosanna's dad. That's the idea anyway. We will just have to wait and see what the bush throws at us. Now, it is still quite warm, and that means that a lot of the animals probably are in the shady areas, and that's why driving in the riverbed like we are now is very good, because lots of big trees out here that provide a lot of shade for the animals, and the animals like to be in shade, so it's a good place to start. I would imagine our big dominant male leopard is probably sleeping under a bush somewhere, much like his son is doing now with Steve, and so this is also a good place to look for a nice place to sleep. So hopefully we'll get lucky. We'll just see how it goes. Now, the other good thing about driving in here is that you also get a lot of nice birds, and I like birds, and so we'll try and see if we can find you some colorful ones, because there are some beautiful birds that live in this section. You get some kingfishers here, you get bush shrikes, which have all got nice bright colors, and so I'm hoping that we can get some of those too. Now it is a bit of a bumpy ride up here. It's half the fun of driving these cars in the bush, is that it is a bit bumpy and all over the place, and you can get lots and lots of kind of fun out of driving around here. Well, I do anyway. I know some of the other guys don't like it so much, but I thoroughly enjoy being bounced around and adventuring through the wilderness as we go about our business. What's that, Ferg? Ferg, you also do. Excellent. Well done. Right, now, you've met Steve, you've met me, and you know what our plans are, but there is a third member, probably the most colourful of our team this afternoon. Certainly his pants are, and he wants to say good afternoon.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Bush Walk. We are on foot and I'm wearing my very special celebratory Nat Geo Kids shorts. As you can see, they are magnificent. My name is James Henry. On camera we have got Batman. Yes, that's what I said. Batman is on camera today. You can talk to us, of course. You can't. Your parents can talk to us using the email address natgeokids@wildearth.tv. Now, we are going down towards a waterhole over here. And because it's quite hot today, if you look just beyond the waterhole, you'll see that we have got an Impala. And that Impala is waiting to make sure that the waterhole is safe for it to go down and drink from, because predators are very clever. Predators will go and lurk next to the water, and when they lurk next to the water, they wait, especially during the dry season, for the animals to come down and drink. You can feel that it's quite a windy day, and that's because we're in August, and it always is a bit windy here in August. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go and see what's at the waterhole. We'll see what else we can find. In the meantime, let's have a look at this special tree. This is a special tree called a magic guarri. And a magic guarri is called magic because there are so many different things you can use the magic guarri for. But I think the most interesting one is something called water divination. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually really possible or if anybody's ever actually really managed to do it, but I'll show you what people say that they could do with this tree. There are various parts of the world where you can use different trees for this for. I think in the United States they used a beech branch, or something like that maybe. Let me see if I can break off a piece. There we go. It's beechwood, yes, I think it's beechwood. Now you take a much bigger one than this, but you find a forked stick. And no, this is not to make a slingshot, or catty as we call them here. And what you do is you walk along like this. And on a thirsty time, or if you were a farmer and you needed to dig a well, you'd walk along like this, and if there was water under the ground where a well could be dug, the stick would start to point down towards the ground like that. And it was said that only few people who were very sensitive to the energy of water would be able to do this. Now, there doesn't seem to be any scientific proof that this is possible at all, but, you know, there's lots of fun things that don't seem to have any scientific proof, but maybe, perhaps, have some kind of basis in fact. So maybe people used to be able to divine water using Euclea divinorum, or the magic guarri, and that's called divining water. Isn't that interesting? I think it's very interesting. Now, let us go back to our male leopard. We'll go down to the waterhole and see what we can find there.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, we've managed to get around him, and he was looking up a moment ago, but he is really breathing heavily because his belly is so full of meat that it's pushing up on his lungs and it's making his lungs a bit smaller. And so he's panting quite heavily, you can see that. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he does get up and walk to a watering hole himself to go and drink. Leopards love to, after they've had some meat and they've digested a little bit, to walk and go and get some moisture in the form of water, just to help cool them down. And Seb, can you see his tongue is sticking out of his mouth? It's just a little leaf there. Sorry, we're in as far as we can go right here. And that is a magic guarri branch in the way, as James was talking about. Very, very special plants. and the leopard is using it for shade. So not only can you use it to find water, you can also use it to keep out of the sunshine. Very, very cool tree. Nice shot there, Seb. So this beautiful cat he's always alert. Cats are always alert. They might look like they're sleeping sometimes, but they always can be switched on very, very quickly by the smallest of little signs. As we saw, he reacted very quickly to that squirrel alarm call. If anything came around, a hyena or another leopard, he would react to it very, very quickly. And they're very good at climbing trees, leopards. They'll spend a lot of the time on the floor, in the shade, but if need be, if something came around that was dangerous to him, he would quickly scamper up the nearest tree, because they are very good at climbing. Very sharp claws, which is good for climbing and also for pulling down the animals that they catch. Is he going to have a yawn? I think he's really struggling to get comfortable. He's got such a big full belly and he's just sitting on his side. Ooh, the flies are irritating him. There he is. Look at those beautiful teeth and that pink nose. He's such a beautiful boy. You can see his tongue as he's panting away. No, he doesn't look like he's enjoying the heat, and it's not even that hot. When our summertime comes, and he's experienced the summer, it gets very hot then. It gets up to 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. That's very warm, isn't it? Yes, I mean, he might need a haircut, but we never see them losing too much hair. I mean, leopards' hair is constantly growing. They're grooming themselves all the time with their tongue. You never really see them losing it until they get really, really old, maybe. But he's in very good condition. This just over 2.5-year-old male. His golden fur and the black spots all over his face and body. I mean, if Seb just pans out slightly, just a little bit, let's see how he disappears, how he sort of blends in with the leaves and the trees behind him. And see how he just sort of blends in. If he doesn't move, it'll be very hard to spot. And this is exactly the sort of area that this animal is designed to live in, designed to hunt in. And he is a very good hunter, this young gentleman. He's a very, very good hunter. And he likes to catch medium to small-sized animals, such as Nyala and Impala and Dacre. And I think James showed you an Impala just now. Lots of Impala around. Okay, well, talking about needing water, James is exactly in the right place to find animals wanting to drink water, and a place that Asana has spent a lot of time over the last month.
Well, this little fellow that we're looking at actually lives in the water, sometimes out of it, but a lot of the time in it. And a lot of you are probably saying, "Oh, a turtle!" But it isn't a turtle, it's something called a terrapin. Strictly speaking, it is a turtle, because turtles are the generic term that we use for the chelonians. I think they're still called chelonians anyway, and that's terrapins, tortoises, and sea turtles. And this is basically a freshwater turtle. It likes to swim around inside fresh water. You couldn't put it in salt water. And it's called a terrapin. Now, although it looks like quite a sweet thing, the terrapin is a little bit like a miniature crocodile when it comes to what it eats. They do eat insects and small things, but they also try and eat birds that come down to the river, not river in this case, down to the waterhole to drink. There we go, he's going into the water. And they'll wait for they'll wait for the birds as they stand on the shore. And then as the birds come down to drink, they'll ambush them. And that means that they'll wait and be very quiet in the water, very still. And they'll probably lurk under the water, very close to where the bird is trying to drink. And then they'll jump out and grab it. Much like a crocodile would do with an antelope or something like that. I believe our directors didn't even know that. Well, it's very nice to teach them something. Let's go a little bit closer down towards the water's edge. All of them are now in the water. They don't breathe water, of course. They only breathe air, much like sea turtles and tortoises. We get tortoises here as well. Let's see what's going on down here. Now, as I said, it's getting very dry, and it probably won't rain properly here until November, which means that this waterhole is going to become what we call a focal point. It's going to become an area where lots of things are going to come down to drink over the course of the next 2 months. And there is our terrapin now. You can see him lurking with his head just out of the water. He might also eat small frogs and that sort of thing. There are no fish in this little pond, so I don't think he's going to try and eat any fish. And I heard a bird calling, a bird called the blacksmith lapwing, but I can't see him. Oh, there's a lizard swimming across the water there. See that? That's called a water monitor lizard. I think it's a water monitor. It's not a snake, is it? No, it's a water monitor lizard. That's really nice to see. That's also a predator. Let's see if he climbs out onto the rock. Not the rock, the log. Oh, that's very special. He's quite a small one. He's probably only about a foot long, and they get to be sometimes up to 4 feet long in exceptional cases. Isn't that nice? He's just going to warm up a bit in the sun. He's going to warm up there in the sun before he gets too cold in the water, and then when he's warm he'll go back into the water. A little bit like you, if you've been for a swim and you lie in the sun afterwards. That's wonderful. I think also somebody who's out here overheating somewhat is Tristan.
Well, it is rather warm out here, I will say that, and in the sunshine it makes it even more warm, and so I suppose, yes, it is a little hot. There is some impalas in front of us, but it's actually not too bad. There's at least a bit of a breeze blowing today. Sometimes it gets a lot hotter than this out here. In fact, in the last few weeks we've had some really hot days that's made it a little bit difficult, but today is not too bad. At least the breeze is keeping us fairly warm. Now, this is just male impala. He's got a couple friends here. There's a few females as well, and in general the herds at the moment are really quite relaxed around each other, which is different from other parts of the year. We've just come out of a period, you see what he just did there, where he lifted his head and he made a bit of a noise. Now, that's behavior that is associated with what's called the rut. Now, a rut is a period of time where the males, they get very, very high on testosterone, and they try and then fight with each other to secure females in order to make babies. And so that's how they kind of move around, and they'll make lots and lots of noise in order to try and get females for themselves. And there the females are. You see, they don't have any horns. That's how you can tell the boys and the girls apart, is that the boys will have these big horns and the girls won't have any at all. But they are a really beautiful animal. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? You'll find that they're in the shade. Remember, I was saying that a lot of the animals will be in the shade because it's quite hot. So this is why they're in the shade like this, is that they're just trying to keep nice and warm. I mean, nice and cool, should I say, and just try and stay out of the direct path of the sun. Because the sun, if you can imagine, if you think about going into the sun and you're in your shorts and your t-shirt and it's quite warm, imagine putting on a jersey on top of that and then feeling how hot it is. It's very, very warm for them with this fur coat. And so a little bit of shade is always needed to make our impala, or any animals actually, feel a little bit more comfortable on a warm day. But they are going about their business just feeding. So what you'll find with impalas is quite interesting. Oh, that one's got a few flies that are irritating it. You saw how it's shaking its leg. So those are because flies are landing on its tummy and around its tail area, and it irritates them. There's a certain fly out here called a biting fly, and the biting fly actually kind of will land on them, and it feels like somebody that's pushing a pin on you. I don't know if you've ever been pricked by a pin, but there's a pin being pushed on you. It's quite sore, and that's what it feels like when these flies bite you. And so the impalas don't like it, and then they shake their legs, and you'll find that their skin has actually even got an automatic response to the feeling of a fly landing on them, and it will just vibrate a little bit and kind of twitch, and that just helps keeping their coat nice and clean and rid of insects and parasites, which is quite nice. Now, I was saying what they're up to is basically feeding, and they feed a little bit different to some of the other animals out here. They're an animal that's called a mixed feeder, which means that they can graze and they can find leaves and, well, little bushes that they'll feed on as well. So it's a very nice system for them. It means that they can find food even in the harshest of times. So whether it be summer or winter, generally they're able to find food a lot easier than a lot of the other animals, and that's why they survive so well. They really do find and utilize every little bit of their environment to keep themselves healthy. So they're one of the animals that does well even in dry conditions. When it's a drought time, they actually sometimes can keep condition a little bit longer than some of the other animals. Good. Well, they're very, very common, so we're going to carry on. I'm sure we'll see some more of them. What I'm actually going to do, I completely forgot that this morning, when we finished our game drive this morning, that there was wild dogs that were around and they came onto the property. So I'm actually going to go look for the wild doggies. They're a very cool animal. I like them. They've got lots and lots of energy and they run around like crazy, and so they're always a very special animal to go and find, and they're very, very endangered. So they're an animal that we don't see often. There's only a handful of wild dogs left in the world. And in fact, here in Kruger National Park area, which is a very, 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 very big place, it's close to 4 million acres, in fact 8 million acres should I say, and it is a place where in all of that space, what have you seen? Go back. Fergus has seen a monitor lizard. That's very cool. Now you saw a monitor lizard with James. Now this is a different one. Forward. Stop. Okay, there we go. There it is. Well done, Fergus. Well spotted. That's a very good spot. Fergus has got his eyes on the back of his head today. Now, I was saying you saw a monitor lizard with James earlier, which is a Nile monitor or water monitor. This is its cousin called a rock monitor. You see it looks very different, doesn't it? It doesn't have the same colors that the water monitor has got. The water monitor has got these yellow colors and is a little bit more brightly colored than these guys. These guys are more gray, and they spend more of their time up in the trees, not so much in the water, and they move around and they'll go into the trees and they'll look for little holes where they're able to find eggs from birds, find little squirrel babies. So they're quite vicious hunters, and that's how they move around. But what this one is doing is busy sunning himself, and that's because he's cold-blooded. And so like the water monitor that was going out of the water and pulling himself onto a log to get some sunshine, this is exactly what this rock monitor is doing, and it will help them get their body moving, and then they can go and try and find some food. But look at how long its fingers are. Do you see it's got long fingers with sharp claws, and that's going to help it to be able to climb up into these trees and to try and get grip when it's going up and down and around all over in its environment. They really are amazing creatures. He looks quite sleepy, doesn't he? Very scaly as well. Now, this is not a very big rock monitor. They get much bigger than this. This is still about halfway to fully grown, and so I would say that this one is probably, what do you think, Fergus, 20 inches? Maybe from the tip of the head to the tip of the tail, and they will get much longer than that. They can get to, in meters, they'll get to almost 2 meters with the tail at full length when they're fully grown, which is a very big lizard, and they have powerful jaws. You see that their mouth comes forward, and look at around the top of their head there and on their neck, there's lots of muscle there, and that helps them to be able to clamp their jaws down. And they're one of the few animals out here that when they clamp down on something, it's very difficult to get their mouth open again. So they really are quite an incredible predator, and not something you want to bite you. They also have this tail that will try and whip you if you get too close, and so many a leopard and other predator like the wild dogs has learned their lesson about getting too close to a monitor lizard. Very cool. How good is that camouflage, though? Fergus has pulled off an amazing spot to be able to see that. Right, we're going to carry on. We'll leave our little rock monitor for it to have a suntan. While we do that, let's send you back across to James, who's looking at the finer things in life, and, well, some of the prettier ones too.
Well, this isn't a very pretty example of what can be a very pretty animal. It is, of course, a dragonfly, and we've been talking a lot about predators because we've had our terrapin, and we've had our water monitor and our rock monitor, and we've had Hosanna. Well, this little chap is also a predator. It eats other insects. Could be a male or a female. I can't tell from here. And it's got a really very clever way of catching things. It's got 6 legs, like all insects, of course. The front legs are the shortest. Then the middle legs are slightly longer, and the back legs are the longest of all. And when it holds those legs out in front of it, they form a basket. And that basket is quite spiky. So if it flies towards a fly or maybe a mosquito larva that's sitting on the top of the water, they are able to grab it and scoop it out of wherever it is and then eat it. And that's how they eat. So they're quite what we'd call voracious predators, which means that they are very enthusiastic predators. They're quite skillful catchers of other insects. Isn't that nice? And the speed that they can fly is absolutely amazing. Let me try and draw that for you. I'm a very bad drawer, but I'm going to try anyway. So basically, the dragonfly has got its big eyes like that, and there's its head, and there's its body, right? See, I told you I was a bad drawer. And then the first leg is like that, the second leg's just a bit longer, and the third leg's just a bit longer than that. And you can imagine if that's the same on the other side, well, then as soon as an insect flies towards it or it scoops behind an insect, it catches the insect inside this little basket, puts its mouth down, and eats it. Yum. That's a beautiful dragonfly. Now, BMCC, you're interested in whether or not animals go swimming when they get hot. Yes, they definitely go swimming, BMCC, especially elephants. They love to swim when it's hot. They wouldn't swim in water like that, but they'd go and stand in the water and throw water on themselves and mud and try and get cool. But no, they don't. They wouldn't swim in there, but if they could find some deep water, yeah, then they would definitely try and swim. Animals need to keep cool in the same way that you and I need to keep cool, and that's not always very easy. Alrighty, I think Hosanna is trying to keep cool, and so is Steve.
Well, we have managed to relocate on the little chief. He got up and walked away, and then he decided to lie out in the open for us, which is now making our, or should I say, Seb's work far easier. He's been sitting up for a little while, but realized that that was way too hard, way too much hard work. He's lying now on the cool sand, once again in a little bit of shade, still with a very full belly, you can see. Look at that, like almost waves of belly action moving there. With a very high metabolism, with lots of meat inside there. He's got to digest it. It's like after Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner, you probably know what it feels like. All you want to do is go and sleep because you've eaten way too much food. Just want to go and lie down, have a nap. That is the life of a leopard. Spend a lot of time sleeping. And let's have a look at those feet again, Seb. Those feet are fantastic. Look at those feet. That is what we look for when we track leopards. You can see the pads on the left are essentially the fingers. We call them the toes, but if you think about your hand, it is the tips of the fingers, those pads, and then that middle pad that you get there, that big one in the middle with the three sort of dents at the back, that is essentially the ridges of the bottom of your fingers, and then that one far at the bottom there that you can see, that one's actually just below the thumb. So the thumb is quite high up, and the entire thing makes up sort of a hand or a foot. So it's very different from our design. They walk on their toes. They don't walk on the flat of their hand. They walk on their toes. That hairy bit between the middle large pad and that one you see on the right is essentially the wrist hand area. So it's a little bit different from us, but they've evolved for different purposes. The cats, they need their pads for walking very silently on the ground, and above each of those toes is a claw that comes back into the sheath, just like Wolverine from the X-Men. You've seen that, I'm sure. His claws come out when he wants to catch something or wants to fight, and then they go back in again when he's relaxed. which is very, very cool. So nice to be able to spend time with a leopard and to be able to see the underside of the foot. And when we're looking for a leopard, when we're tracking them, we actually get to see that track on the ground. And I'll be able to show it to you in my book, because that is what we look for when we're tracking a leopard. So let's have a little look. You saw that foot there, didn't you? You saw how it all worked, and here is the track in the sand that we'll be looking for. And here is the male over here, the same as his front foot. See, I was talking to you, those are the fingers up there. And this bit over here is actually sort of the ridge on the hand. If I show you this bit on my hand here. Okay, and then there's that open patch which actually bends. And then there's a thumb which is high up on the leg of the animal. And then the wrist is kind of in the middle. It's kind of strange if you think about it. But they're able to turn this around onto the animal because the thumb will be down here somewhere, which allows them to sort of bend that hand wrist-like thing around onto the back of an animal when they want to grab it and pull it down. It makes it very, very efficient sort of way of catching. And so these are the tracks we're looking for in the sand. You can see clearly at the bottom here those 3 lobes, 1, 2, and 3. And that's what we see in the sand. Make it very easy to see with that big space in between. And when you looked at his foot there, it's quite easy to see that is exactly what we're looking for. Okay, well, enough about those tracks. Thank you, Seb. Back to the very lazy Horsana. Hello, BMCC. That's a very good question. You wanted to know how long leopards stay with their mom and dad. Well, essentially, leopards will stay with their mother, not really their father. The father doesn't play too much of an active role in the upbringing of the youngster, but anywhere from 1 to 2 years, leopards will stay with their mother. And that really depends on the individual and on the mother's ability as well. For example, this young guy with his sister were only with his mom until they were about 1 year, 2 months, and that's because their mother passed away. But sometimes they will also leave at that sort of age, but they're not normally too well adapted to being on their own at that stage. But they can stay with mum up until about 2. That's generally the average. And then slowly but surely they start competing with mum a little bit too much for the food. Especially when you're a young boy, you eat more than you're supposed to, or more than mum would like you to, and she starts just leaving you behind. And that's generally what happens. Anywhere between 1 year and 2 years, the mother will just get fed up with the youngster and start going and catching food for themselves, and the youngster will, out of hunger, start hunting on their own, and by instinct, they are actually very efficient hunters. And after 1 year and a bit, after 2 years, they generally are quite good at procuring or getting food for themselves. They've learnt lots from mum, and a lot of it is instinctive. And this individual, as I say, he's just over 2.5, and he's been doing a lot on his own already for more than 1 year. And we are very blessed to spend time with him. Very blessed to get this close to these cats without them really showing any negative reaction. And that's a long line, a long history of something we call habituation. It's not tame. By no means is this a pet or a tame animal. It's just relaxed to the vehicle and relaxed to us in the vehicle with our voices. But if I had to get out of the car and he would see my 2-legged upright standing human form, well, that could change his behavior. Could change it quite quickly, so we wouldn't want to do that. It's why if you ever do come on safari, and the guide tells you when you're sitting in the vehicle, rule number 1, and we say rule because it's quite important to pay attention to that. It's more of a guideline. No one really likes rules. Do not stand up. No one really quite understands that. But if you stand up, the leopard or the lion sees your shape as the human. And these animals have sort of evolved and coexisted with humans on the African continent since the beginning of time. And they know who we are, and they're actually quite fearful of us. And if you can get in close like we are now with the vehicle, and they don't really know what we are, they just see this metal box that smells a bit funny, but then suddenly you show your form, and you're very close, you're going to cause that animal to react. And the reaction might be them running away. It might also be, lo and behold, them jumping on the vehicle and attacking you, which I've never heard of happening. but we don't want to influence these animals anyway. We want to view them naturally in their natural habitat, watch them perform their natural daily tasks of hunting and catching, and even if it is just sleeping in the shade, it is part and parcel of a leopard's behavior, and we love to bear witness and to show all of you back home. So please keep sending through your questions to that email address, natgeokids@wildearth.tv. We'd love to hear from you. But we're going to go back over to James Henry, who's still on foot. I wonder what little things he's going to show you next.
Well, what we're trying to show you quite desperately is a little herd of Nyala, which is what Hosana's eating, or was eating earlier today. There we can just see their coats through there. There we go, that's a female Nyala. She's very pretty. And she's about, I'd say she probably weighs in the region of 200 pounds or so she's quite big. There we go, and they like to live in this thick bush, which is good if you like to eat leaves, because leaves are obviously quite nutritious. But the sacrifice they have to make is that it's difficult to it's difficult to stay safe, because of course leopards will use this thick bush to walk through in order to catch their prey. And so if you're a Nyala, you need to be very careful, and they've got huge big ears so that they can hear any movement in the bush behind them. And if it's windy like it is now, then it's even more difficult, because it's difficult to hear anything when the wind is blowing like this. It's going whoosh, whoosh. And so if a leopard was to come sneaking up behind that Nyala, it would be difficult for the Nyala to hear it, or see it, of course. But they're very relaxed now. I don't think they're in any danger. And that's always quite nice for a Saturday afternoon, isn't it? Now DMCC, the dragonfly we saw is not very huge at all. It's actually quite small. It's probably only about 2 inches long. Not that big or so. It just looks very big because the camera's quite clever at making it look big. Because it was zoomed in and it filled the whole picture, you get the impression that it was very big. But no, it wasn't. It was about that big. You can see how that gets bigger. Makes my hands look much bigger the closer the camera is to them. Alrighty, let's keep going along here. Here's something quite interesting. This is the very interesting dung of an elephant, but it's a very baby elephant. Big male or big bull or cow elephants have got dung about that big, and that's about, we say 8 inches in diameter. This is very small and has come out of a tiny, tiny baby elephant. But you can still see that the tiny baby elephant is already having to eat very, what we call, coarse material. It's been eating sticks. Trying to see if I can see what sticks it's been eating. No, I won't be able to see them here, obviously. And let's see what else it's been eating. It's been eating a little bit of grass. It's been eating some leaves. So we can see the leaves that it's been eating. And I can even tell you that that is something called a zebra wood. And so they've been eating zebra wood leaves, which they like at this time of the year. And I'm just going to give it a smell. And you know, it smells delicious. You can't believe it. It's quite old now, so it's dry. But it smells very like sweet spices. And it's used extensively in traditional medicine out here, because elephants eat so many different kinds of plants that if a traditional healer out here doesn't really know what's wrong with you and thinks that you need a general medicine of some kind to help you through the tough times, well, then this is what they'll give you. And they'll either tell you to burn it and inhale the smoke, or perhaps soak it in some water and then drink the water. But most often it's burning it and inhaling the smoke, which smells quite nice. But you can't do it too much, because then it makes you go... Right, let's go down through here. Alrighty, we're going to go and see if we can probably help Tristan find the leopard that he's looking for. We're going to be on foot, it's perfectly safe, but we're going to give him a bit of a hand, of course, because he's in a vehicle.
Well, that would be very nice of you, James, because it's always quite tricky finding leopards, and so if James can find them on foot, it does help, because you can get into places on foot much quicker and easier than what I can in a vehicle. But I was saying that we're also looking for the wild dogs. I can't find any sign of their footprints, and that's how we find these animals, is we look for any sign of little tracks that they might have left behind, and then it helps us to be able to see which direction they were moving in, and I can't seem to find any at this stage, which we're going to keep looking around. But what we have found is another type of bird that eats meat. So you've got a white-backed vulture there, and this white-backed vulture is sitting on its nest. And so this nest is one that is used every year by these vultures. They come back year after year and they lay their eggs inside there. And it's an interesting nest because generally vultures prefer slightly thornier trees than what you see here. This tree is not very thorny at all, and therefore is quite exposed to many different predators, things like snakes, things like mongoose potentially could get up there, and even something like a leopard, like Steve has got, could maybe go up and get to the chicks. Now, what you'll find is that this adult would have laid eggs. Oh, there, did you see this movement there? Is there a little chick there? Now, this would be the first time we've seen the chick, if it is there, because I was going to say lay eggs, and the eggs are normally laid in July. Yes, there's a little one. Do you see the little bit head popping up? How cool is that? So they are little chicks. Now, that's very cool. This is the first time we've actually seen the little chick on the nest. And so basically what happens is these guys normally nest around June, July, and they'll lay eggs and they'll sit on those eggs for 44 days, if you can believe it. It's a very long time. And then the little eggs will hatch, and normally they lay 2 to 3 eggs, and what happens is unfortunately the first one that hatches, because it hatches first, it's generally the strongest of the 3 or 2, and it will actually either kick the other eggs out of the nest or roll them out, or as they are born it will peck them to death and kill them so that it doesn't have any competition for growing up, which is pretty crazy. So you'll always find it'll just be one chick that will be left on a nest as it grows up. Now that chick there is going to grow for many days before it's able to actually fly. It's going to be on that nest for over 180 days. So that's a long time. It's almost a full year that these parents have to look after their chick, and eventually sometime in about April next year, we'll start to see that chick will start to fly. But that's very cool to see. I didn't expect to see the little chick. We knew it was going to happen at any stage, and I'm super excited that we managed to see its little head poking up and moving about. And it's probably why the adult was actually standing, because when we've been coming over the past few weeks, we've been finding that the adult's been sitting on there. So both male and female will sit on the nest, and they sit on it for 2 reasons. One is to incubate and to keep the egg at a certain temperature, but in the day when it's hot like this, they often are protecting it from the sun. And to find it sitting off on the side was already an indication that maybe, just maybe, these little eggs have hatched. How cool is that, though? Now, it's very important that we have vultures hatching, because vultures are under extreme threat at the moment. Unfortunately, many threats to them, and their numbers are declining. So vultures are becoming harder and harder to find, and it's very bad because a vulture is hugely important to an ecosystem. They don't look very pretty, and they do eat meat, but they are amazingly good at doing their job, and their job is to clean up all the bits of meat that are out here, and that means that they're making sure that there's not too much disease, and because anytime rotten meat is around, it can potentially promote diseases to be released into the wildlife, and it's a really bad thing. And also it would smell very bad out here if there was just rotten animals all over the place and nobody to clean it up. And so these guys are very important to make sure that we don't have that happening. So it's important that we have them, and unfortunately, like I say, a lot of them are disappearing very fast, and it's a shame because they're such an amazing bird. But that was so cool. What a nice surprise for a Saturday afternoon. I didn't think we were going to see a chick this afternoon, which is very cool. I'm hoping it's going to pop its head up for us one more time. Doesn't seem like it at this stage. You can see the adult's not too worried about us being around. This adult has seen us driving up and down this area for many months and years, and so it's quite used to us being around. Now, of course, if we had to climb up there and try to get to the nest, it would be a different story, and we wouldn't do that. So if you ever see birds with a nest, don't go climbing up towards their nest, because it makes them very stressed. And, you know, a bird will try its best to defend its babies, and if you're going up there, then it's going to stress that bird out, and it might then eventually even abandon the nest if it thinks something has happened to it. So it's not good to go and climb up towards birds' nests and try and kind of look at the eggs and those kind of things. Also, it's very dangerous to be going up into the trees without any adult supervision, so don't do those kind of things. Leave those kind of things for James and his fancy shorts as when he climbs up trees. James loves to climb a tree, by the way. He's always up and down in them. But that was amazing. I really am surprised that we got to see it. Now, I only saw one head, so like I say, there should only be one, really. There's generally vultures will only raise one. And sometimes in rare occurrences, if you catch the eggs when they're still just hatched, then you can find two of them inside there. But it just seems like the one that's settled down probably for a bit of a nap. Very cool. All right, well, privacy as it raises its little chick, but that was absolutely amazing. How cool was that? Excellent. Good. Well, let's carry on. Let's see if we can find this other leopard or these wild puppies, because it would be a nice way to celebrate a Saturday with wild dogs. They are party animals. Always think of them as party animals because they're a bit crazy. They go all over the place, and they're Fergus's favorite animal. And so Fergus, who's had to put up with me looking for leopards all the time lately, because I love leopards. Leopards are my favorite. It's a day that we need to actually spoil Fergus a little bit and go and get some wild dogs for him, because, you know, it's always good for the soul to look at your favorite animal, and I'm hoping that we can appease Fergus's appetite. Fergus, will you be happy if we find wild dogs?
I'm always happy, but I'll be happier.
You're always happy, but you'll be happier. Exactly. Yes, Fergus's nickname is Wild Dog, Wilderhond, which is Afrikaans for the wild dog, and it's because Fergus is got some traits that he shares with wild dogs. He is a very active animal, but very endearing in many ways. So Fergus, you epitomize all the good qualities of wild dogs. Lucky you don't smell like a wild dog, though. That's a good thing, because no one wants to smell like a wild dog. They're very stinky. They are probably one of the stinkiest animals that we have out here. So Fergus is not a stinky animal, I can promise you all that. Now we need to avoid going into a big ditch that is on the left-hand side here, because that will be uncomfortable if we end up inside there, that's for sure. But I still don't see any tracks for these doggies, so I don't know who actually saw them. Anyway, I'll keep looking around and see what is here, and while I do that, let's send you back across to, I think, Steve with the beautiful Hosanna.
He is beautiful and panting, and the flies that have been annoying him have just come across and bitten myself and Sebastian as well. Some biting flies, not very pleasant, but anyway, we chased them away, and we were going to show you a bird that has just moved away, but it was a flycatcher, the bird that is probably catching up on these sort of little flies and insects that are annoying this cat, but they don't want to get too close to the cat, because the cat will catch the bird as well. I was going to show you a beautiful southern black flycatcher, but he's now moved off. The birds don't stick around for too long in this wind. They're not like cats that they spend the whole day sleeping. Birds are generally busy all day long trying to feed themselves. Busy. They can't afford to lie down like Hosanna and sleep all the hours of the day away. My brother used to be like that. He used to spend all night up and then sleep all during the day. We call them night owls, I believe. Call you a night owl will be Hosanna. Indeed. You see those beautiful rosettes. Apparently every single leopard's coat is unique in its design, and those you see on the belly there's spots, and on the side there's sort of those black circles, half circles with the golden in the middle. Those are called rosettes because they look like roses, don't they? And that is the difference between cheetah and leopard. If you just see the spots, is that the cheetah just has those spots you see on the belly, those solid black circles. That's what the cheetah has, whereas the leopard has got the rosettes. So if all you can see is a little bit of the animal, hopefully it's more than just the belly, well then it's a very good chance that you can identify the difference between the two. We do get both of them in the area, but cheetah are not as common to see. Just like Tristan is talking about the wild dog come and go. The cheetah also come and go. Of the large carnivores, the cheetah is the most, or the weakest of them, and always moves away to the bigger predators. The leopard has the ability to climb the tree to get away from the other predators, including away from the wild dogs. The wild dogs work as a unit. They run very fast. It's very difficult to catch them. They will often chase a leopard up a tree, but they generally steer clear of lions. They will outcompete hyena in a certain degree. But cheetah, they've got no chance against wild dogs. Neither cheetah don't have a chance against leopards either. So we don't find too many of them in the area. We're going to quickly go over to James for something exciting.
There's a leopard there, everybody. We found Tingana, the male leopard. Can you see him? We don't know if we can see him with a camera. I can just see him moving through the bushes there with my eyes. Come over here, Craig. I think we'll get him. Maybe. It's very exciting to find a leopard on foot. He's moving through the bush there. We'll get Tristan into the sighting as quickly as possible. But this male leopard, who is Hosanna's father, doesn't like to be seen on foot. And he obviously heard us coming, and he just went trotting off through the bush. I can't see him there anymore. I don't think we won't see him again on foot. We're not going to even try, because he doesn't like us on foot. And so the real lesson here is to show you that the animals out here are not necessarily dangerous. Of course, that's a wild leopard, and if you made him feel afraid enough, then he would be very dangerous indeed. But even though he's very fast, and even though he's very powerful and immensely strong, his normal reaction is to move away from human beings, because they don't like us very much. They're afraid of us. That's very exciting. Now, what we're going to do is help Tristan get into the sighting and see if we can't get the vehicle, because he'll be very comfortable around the vehicle. He's just not comfortable with us on foot. Did you see him? Did we see him? No, you didn't see him. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, well, let's go across to Hosanna while we get Tristan into the sighting.
How exciting is that? So exciting. Another leopard, to find them on foot as well. Well done, James, and no doubt Herbie played an enormous part in the finding of that gentleman. And that gentleman, I do believe, from what I hear on the radio, is the father of this young fellow. And quite incredible how we often see them together. And I know we were talking about how long does a leopard stay with his mother and father. Well, they don't generally stay with their fathers, but they hang out. This guy's hanging out. Hosanna's hanging out in his dad's territory, and it's quite incredible how his dad's allowing him to be that way. We talk about it every day, but it really is amazing stuff. I was reading a story from Londolozi this morning, very recent story. They've got a young male there, very similar to this one, who's doing something very similar as well. His dad is down there, and he has been catching food around a pan. His dad's been stealing it, and his dad's tolerating him. So it seems to be something that does happen from time to time, but not something I've really spent too much time in my life experiencing. So it's wonderful to see these things firsthand, to take note of them, to be able to document them. And that's what's wonderful about what we do, is we're out here every day recording the movements, the behavior, the food, the mothers, the fathers, the cubs. All of that is being documented, how they're interacting, and that is history. That is records. That is history. So lovely to be able to do it, and we have lots of viewers out there that watch as well, and it's like a soap opera, really. The royal family out here, how they are moving, doing their thing. And he is very, very full. But look at those beautiful feet. Those are his back feet. They're a little bit smaller than the front foot because the front feet need to be bigger because his shoulders and his head is where all the weight is. So that's why even when we look at the track, like what we saw before, the back foot will often be smaller than the front foot. You see that with lots of animals. We don't have it because obviously we only have 2 feet. So everything, all the weight goes onto those 2 feet. But if you look at elephant and kudu, and individuals like that, the weight is on the shoulders. Hyena is on the shoulders with their head. And so the front feet need to be a little bit bigger to sort of spread out that weight a little bit on the ground to eliminate having these pressure points, like walking on high-heeled shoes. You know, I don't know if you've ever done that, but I haven't done it. Well, not since I was very young when I was playing with my mom's shoes, but it's very uncomfortable to do. You need to be able to spread the weight out. Makes it a bit easier and also a little bit more quiet indeed. But I don't think this young gentleman is going anywhere this afternoon. He's going to just sit here in the shade, hoping the day is going to get cooler, and it will. The sun will be setting in about 2 hours time, hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes or so. The sun will be setting, and that is when he's going to feel a lot more comfortable. Okay, well, while we're going to stay with this gentleman here, and I believe Tristan has managed to get back in and to have a look at the father of Hosanna.
Indeed we have. So Herbie and James were very good at being able to find him on foot, and I was saying they're going to help us a lot, and they did. And they managed to find Dad, who you can see is still looking very, very alert after seeing them on foot. And that's not because he's kind of scared of him. It's because he is more in a kind of case where he's aware that there are people around. And he just needs to make sure that he's not really seen that much, because as a male leopard, or as a leopard, they don't really like to be seen. They like to hide and camouflage quite well. But isn't he magnificent? You see how much bigger his head is than Hosanna's. He's got this big neck area that hangs down, this fold of skin called a dewlap that he's got that hangs down. So I'm going to try and find him now. Carry on trying to find him. You know, he's kind of going into a very horrible place where it's going to be very thick and difficult to follow, but I'm hoping that what he's going to do is find himself a nice little spot, and then he's going to lie down. Now, when I said hello to all of you earlier, this is exactly where I was a little bit further to the kind of east of where I am, but we weren't far off, Fergus, so we almost got this right straight off the bat this afternoon. We just kind of a little bit missed him, but it's okay. We'll be able to follow him from here. It should be all right. It's a little bit, like I say, a little thick, but hopefully we'll still be able to see him. Now, we just got to make sure that we don't hurt Fergus as we go through here. Fergus, are you all right?
Survived. I'm survived.
You'll survive. Excellent. Right, now we're just going to break through this little thicket here, and then we're going to see him quite nicely, which will be pretty good. Now, hopefully I can just get straight through without having too much of a problem. And then Tingana should be just in front. There we go. So he's just striding off a little bit and kind of moving into an area where he's going to find some shade in order to lie down. So it's not too far from here where I think he's going to lay. It's the riverbed is just below, and I'm pretty sure that's where he's going to kind of settle for the remainder of the afternoon. But let's just try to get round Fergus and see if we can just get one better view of him, because unfortunately it's almost that time where we need to say goodbye to all of you. So I'm hoping I can get a nice view of him for you before that is the time to say goodbye. Right, we should get a really nice view from here. A little further forward. There There we go. Look at that. Isn't he beautiful? He is absolutely magnificent. He's really a big male leopard. Like I say, look at how much bigger he is in comparison to Hosanna. Hosanna's got a lot of growing to do before he's going to be able to compete with Dad. He's definitely a lot heavier than what his son is, and so Tingana should be the dominant male for quite some time still, I'm afraid. Hosanna needs to grow a little bit longer before he's going to compete. Anyway, unfortunately, that's the end of our afternoon. Hopefully you had a wonderful time with us as we journeyed through Africa. 2 leopards is absolutely phenomenal, and James in his fancy pants on bushwalk is a special sighting of its own. So we've been spoiled this afternoon, and like I say, hopefully you had a lot of fun. And remember that you can catch us next week in the same place and the same time, as we once again will go through the African wilderness to try and provide you with many things. Till then, we'll see you all next time.